Hello and welcome to Digital Nation. Looking through the lens of local TV channels, here's my weekly roundup of what's happening in the UK. In this week's show, we reflect on the anniversary of the devastating floods in Leeds. We count goldfish in a zoo in Norwich. And log into a new app in Portsmouth. And you can contact us using the hashtag Digital Nation. First this week, we're going to Cardiff, where for 35 years a group of amateur musicians have given up their free time to rehearse and perform their favourite pieces of music. So, when the works of the composer of the Star Wars score, John Williams, were on the agenda, there was a full house to play those well-known and well-loved tunes.
So we've come to Bishop of Llandaff High School to have a little look at a rehearsal for a very special performance of film music by Cardiff Philharmonic Orchestra. And with me now is the conductor, Michael Bell. Michael, thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Pleasure, Tom.
Tell me a little bit how the orchestra was formed.
Well, the orchestra was formed by a group of us after we finished college back in the 1980s. We didn't have any playing to do, so we decided to form an orchestra. We thought we'd do one concert. And here we are, over 300 concerts, and 35 years later we're still at it, so we're still going strong. We're all amateur musicians. We come here for the love of it. People give up lots of time for rehearsals and practice. We rehearse every week on a Friday night, and we've got 2 concerts coming up now of film music, so it's all go at the moment.
Absolutely, and I'm afraid that is exactly why I'm here to chat with you, because I'm a huge film music fan, really passionate about it. Brilliant music from John Williams there. I mean, would you say John Williams is one of your favourites, or do you have someone slightly less unknown, to say, favourite film composer?
Well, John Williams, I think, must be at the top of this, Rick. We've performed a lot of music by him over the years, and it's so brilliantly written for the orchestra, and they love playing it. It's a challenge, every piece he writes, and he writes great tunes as well for all his film music. So I think he must be there at the top.
To Belfast now, and the story of a Moravian religious settlement that was set up in the 18th century. Ancient Bohemia and Moravia were part of what is now the Czech Republic. And now in the UK, there are about 1,200 members spread among 30 congregations.
Grace Hill looks like a normal Georgian village, but actually when you visit you realise that everything has got a place and everything's got a reason because of the Moravian religion that underpinned how it was designed, and really, really fascinating, and the people there are so welcoming.
The Moravians first came here in the 18th century, and so the village was, they started to build actually in 1759 and finished at 1765. Nowadays the church is still thriving, and we're lucky to have the beautiful buildings left really just as they once were.
This is the interior of Grace Hill Moravian Church, and it's where the congregation meet every Sunday morning for worship. The building has been up for just over 200 years. It was built in 1765. Because we believe very much in equality and simplicity, Moravian burial stones are typically just a small square, a tablet laid flat on the gravestone. So people who didn't know would assume that just covered the top of the grave and that the graves were buried vertically, but that isn't so at all. And Moravians are buried just the same as anyone else, horizontally. The only difference you'll discover here in Grace Hill is that on one side of the burial ground, the men are buried and the women are buried on the other side. So just as the church traditionally was separated into the sisters' side and the brothers' side, so the burial ground is still the brothers buried on one side and the sisters buried on the other.
Now in Bristol, a local artist has come up with a highly visible way to celebrate the lives of 7 prominent and influential members of the black community. Not only does it raise awareness of their contribution to the region, it also vividly renovates the walls of some of the residents.
Owen Henry, the first of St Paul's 7 saints. This mural marks the start of the larger-than-life project conceived by St Paul's artist Michelle Curtis, as she unveils the next stage to her 2015 exhibition in St Agnes Park of Bristol's black historical icons.
I realised that this was such a real sort of rich history, and I thought that everybody needed to know, what these people have done, and I felt that, just having an exhibition just really wasn't enough.
The remaining saints have yet to materialise as the search for the right canvases and funding continues.
The next plan is to get all the feedback in, get some testimonies from the community in support of the project, and put a package together and start looking for funding and sponsorship and so forth, so we can get the rest of the walls done next year summer. What we're hoping to do is have all 6 walls put up in 6 weeks over the summer holidays.
From founders of the carnival to members of the Commonwealth Coordinated Committee, the 7 saints have all been vital members of the community, helping to grow and shape Bristol.
2 of them were our founders of a housing association, so we feel it's kind of making a big mark for us. This is one of our properties where we've kind of had this on there.
With the first mural now complete, it's time to gauge reaction before the rest appear, and some locals are all too eager for this kind of work to go further.
Well, apart from my walls getting done, ideally, I would like all the rest of the walls to get done under Mr. Henry, but I would like all carnival colours.
The Brothers Grimm fairy tale of Hansel and Gretel has been brought to the Edinburgh stage using a modern-day slant on the original as well as spectacular settings. Using the original music created by Engelbert Humperdinck, no, not the singer, has also given the production a whole new feel. STV spoke to the principal dancers.
It's a very sparkly production. It's a family feast. It's lots of sweets involved. We have children performing with us. The scenery is amazing, the forest scene especially.
Yeah. It's a real story that will draw the audience in. You follow it from start to finish. There's lots of different things, lots of characters.
It's like reading the book, reading the book. Each scene is sort of flipping the pages. We're putting Act 2 together today, and then we will start running the ballet before opening night on Saturday.
Yeah, it's been smooth. We've done the production before, a few years ago, and we have a number in the company who are new to the production, so also it gives it a kind of fresh vibe as well.
Yeah, well, we went to school together, so we've known each other since about 11, and we did Hansel and Gretel 3 years ago, so it's easy. We just play ourselves, basically, but our inner child.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree.
As a dancer, I love the acting involved in this production because you get the chance to play different characters, and putting yourself into the role is really nice, especially with Gretel. She has so many ups and downs in the story. She has a lament for Hansel, and then she has the fun food fight. And I think bringing it together in Scotland is just perfect for families, and we love doing it. So.
Yeah, we're a small company doing a really big production, so we're lucky enough to explore different roles. So that's always a fun thing because each show we get to use a different personality, and that's a great thing because your feedback from the audience to a different character is always different, so that's nice. And the audience is family friendly. It's just everyone loves it, and you can really feel that they get taken into the story up until the very last moment of the witch going into the oven. Everyone starts cheering, and it's a good moment.
According to the latest statistics released by the Campaign for Real Ale, around 29 pubs are closing every week in the UK. So for drinkers in Brighton, it has to be good news that one company is saving and restoring a property scheduled to close.
The jury's out has now a bright future. or a brightened future?
Edward Street is really important for pubs and probably indicates what's happening in the whole nation. It used to have 27 pubs at one stage on this street. It now has just 2 left, including this one. And if this wasn't saved at this stage, then we were worried that we'd end up with none. So we decided to step in to save the pub, really, and to bring it back to its former glory. So it's been a pub since 1832, but now it's going to be a freehold and it's going to be a 100% brewery-owned tap house. We felt it was really important to stop, really, the loss of pubs rather than create a new one. Also, the fact that it is a Brighton beer brewery tap will be really important for us. We have people who travel from London to come down and kind of try beers that they maybe can't get in the rest of the country. And that will be important in terms of tourism and drawing people into the area. So
when can we have the first beer?
Well, we're hoping that will be around the beginning of March. We're currently just waiting on the planning to go through. In order to make buildings like this successful in the long term and have some longevity and sustainability, we really need to look at the way that pubs are used. What generally happens is you have a ground floor operation and then you have floors above that are pretty much derelict with no investment and falling around their ears. So our plan here is to use the pub as a pub so we don't lose it, but also to put in office space which is much needed for kind of new media businesses on the 2 floors above.
And that brings us to the end of part 1 and time for our weekly quiz. So, which town in the UK is known for its leather trade? Is it A, Halifax, B, Warsaw, or C, Ipswich? We'll hide the answer until after the break. Welcome back to Digital Nation. Now, before the break, we asked you, in which town in the UK is known for its leather trade? It was, of course, B, Warsaw. For 200 years, Warsaw has been making some of the world's finest saddles and leather goods, with at least 40 manufacturers still in existence in the town. Have you ever tried counting the number of goldfish in a pond? Well, how about you spare a thought for the keepers at a zoo in Norwich, where they compile their annual audit of creatures. Tigers, meerkats and monkeys, oh, they're fine, but a cage full of bugs and insects takes some concentration.
From a 3-month-old Grevy zebra just finding its feet, to a 6-month-old red panda that's no more than a bundle of fur. These are just some of the new arrivals at Banham Zoo this year. Both endangered, they're part of the zoo's breeding programme to try to improve numbers and stop both species becoming extinct.
We've got lots of breeding programmes around, so we're always hoping that those animals that are in breeding programmes are going to produce healthy little offspring for us. So, yeah, it's one of the exciting parts of the job. You know, we can set up the situation, but it's down to them at the end of the day.
And it's the new arrivals that take centre stage at this time of year as the keepers carry out their annual animal audit, counting up the 4,000 or so creatures here at Banham and at its sister site Africa Alive. The count means they can keep their databases up to date to share with other zoos around the world and the licensing authorities, and will help them decide the best ways to breed them in the next year. But it's not just the babies that'll be featuring on the list for the first time this year. Other new arrivals include Santos the sloth, who moved into the subtropical house Eureka in May, and 4 male Gelder baboons, led by alpha male Maliki.
Obviously we keep track of it during the year, you know, if we miss a tiger during the day, you know, we've got a problem, so we'll go out and find out what's gone wrong. But when we go down to more like the invertebrates and things, like cockroaches and stick insects, we don't know exactly how many we've got every day. Also lots of goldfish and things, they breed throughout the year, so yeah, trying to count goldfish is quite tricky, but we get there in the end.
Down in Portsmouth, Henry VIII's flagship, the Mary Rose, is a major visitor attraction. Now, using modern technology and the development of apps for smartphones, visitors from all over the world are able to enjoy the spectacle and hear the history spoken in their own language.
Out of the eerie blue light stands the remains of a once great warship. The Mary Rose was the pride of King Henry VIII's fleet, But since it was raised from the depths of the Solent in 1982, the viewing public have been able to catch a glimpse of what remains. And now, with the help of a new smartphone application, they can take a little piece of it home with them as well.
We've been working on a project for an app for a while now and looking at different ways of improving our visitors' experience. So we wanted to increase particularly our foreign language provision, our accessibility provision, and we were looking at different ways of doing this, and the app seemed an ideal way to do it, working with a local company as well, which was fabulous. And we did have some maps in overseas languages, but gave you very limited detail. This is an opportunity for our overseas guests to experience 16 of the key aspects of the museum in their own language.
It is from a painting that used to be in Cowdray House in West Sussex.
C'était aussi l'un des premiers objets construits pour ce bateau.
Auch war es eines der ersten Objekte, die zum Schiff geliefert wurden und trägt das Datum 1510.
Es la campana del navío Mary Rose.
For our less able guests, there's a number of accessibility tools on there, particularly a map that points out where the tactile guides are, where the handling tables are, where the large print guides are. So it really just will bring it to life.
In total, 172 longbows were recovered from the Mary Rose, along with over 2,000 complete arrows. Over on the wall case behind the archer's personal case, you can see the longbows as they had been stored.
And for anyone interested in visiting the Mary Rose Museum, the app is free to download.
Always on your phone texting your friends? Creative Kingdom tells you who made it possible.
What would we do without text messaging? We'll actually talk to each other for a start, but there's no denying the effect they've had on the world. But where was the first text message sent? Well, it wasn't America, neither was it Japan. No, it was this place, an office in Newbury in Berkshire. And it was sent as early as 1991 by a test engineer called Neil Papworth from his computer to the boss of the company while he was on his work too. The message? Merry Christmas. No smiley faces, no incorrect spelling, but the beginning of an avalanche. Proof once again that when it comes to creativity, innovation and mangling the English language, Ink Newbury Mint.
To Birmingham, where there's a very special concert taking place at the city's Symphony Hall. The Para Orchestra is made up of musicians with disabilities who perform at the Paralympics in London. They're now the only professional orchestra of its kind, and Made in Birmingham met with a determined leader.
Heroes. That's just one of the words used to describe Britain's first professional para orchestra since they performed at the London Paralympic Games closing ceremony back in 2012, almost 4.5 years on, and its founder was at Symphony Hall to promote an upcoming event. As a man whose youngest daughter was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, prejudice against disabilities is an issue close to his heart, something that forced him to conduct the para orchestra.
Let's remember there is no other ensemble quite like this one anywhere in the world, so it is really like we're breaking new ground. The big problem we have is that people in general have a real difficulty in putting the word disability and the word excellence in the same sentence. Even though when we look at the Paralympics, which is proved beyond reasonable doubt that there is no barrier to the highest levels of sportsmanship if you have to have a disability, it's about the world changing its thinking, about doing a different kind of joined up thinking in order to allow the new world order to emerge. And the new world order in our terms would be that there will be musicians with disability playing in all the great orchestras everywhere in the world, and the Para Orchestra is the first step towards that goal.
Charles has worked with musicians across the globe and has described the Para Orchestra as some of the best he's ever worked with, including clarinet player Lloyd. As one of the originals from the group, Lloyd suffers from a reading and hearing impairment and feels that more can be done to make things equal for all.
There are very simple, practical things that need to change before we can say that musicians genuinely have a level playing field. Until, for instance, all the concert halls in the UK have a stage or a platform that is accessible for wheelchair users, we can't actually say that they have, a way of even getting onto the stage. There's a long way to go, but I'm confident that the Para Orchestra is very much at the forefront of that drive for change, and that's why I'm so excited to be part of it.
To Liverpool now, where the Unity Theatre has taken the tale of Grandma, Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf to produce a unique working of the old fairy tale. Made in Liverpool met the cast and found out how they're approaching the timeless story of the woods and adapting the characters they play.
So we're here in the Unity Theatre to talk about their Christmas show, and you might think, why are you talking about Christmas show in the new year? It's because it's still running, and it's Little Red, and we're here with Luca, who plays Little Red. Tell us a little bit about your character.
So Little Red Riding Hood is with her mum at her house, and then she's got to go and see her granny because she's ill. So she's made her a pie, and she goes off on a journey
Into the woods. And does it follow the kind of the classic Little Red Riding Hood story, or is there extra twists?
There are definitely extra twists, but it follows it in the sense that it starts in a place of safety, ends in a place of safety, but there's a big adventure and a big scare in the middle.
What would you say would be the one thing that should grab people into seeing the show?
I think everyone thinks they know the story. It's, Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf. It's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. But what's brilliant about Action Transport and Unity Theatre and our director, Nina, is that creating a story that you think you know, but it's done in a very interesting way. And like Lucas said, you know what happens at the beginning, you know what happens at the end, but there's a journey in between that, and there's fantastic music, and there's 4 of us doing all the roles, and there's a lot more roles than Granny, the Bad Wolf, Woodcutter, Little Red. There's more than that.
Finally, we go to a museum in Leeds that reflects on the anniversary of the worst floods seen in a generation. Reports at the end of 2015 show just how devastating they were to the region. But out of every negative comes a positive, and stories abound of the community spirit shown during the aftermath.
After the floods, Leeds starts to clean up after the devastation over the weekend, as questions about defences are asked.
I have a pub by the riverside. You probably expect these kind of things, but on this scale, no. I mean, we expected maybe a little bit of water coming in, but not 5 feet of water. I mean, that was just unbelievable. And we do have a flood defence wall here, as you can see, but it came completely over the top of it. It was just unprecedented, really.
The December 2015 floods were the result of the River Aire bursting its banks and releasing a colossal amount of water, vastly affecting areas such as Kirkstall. And here, in the neighbouring area of Armley, is the Leeds Industrial Museum, an institute directly affected by the floods. It is now hosting an exhibition about those fateful days. It's a collection of stories, images and facts about the worst floods to hit Leeds in a generation.
The Boxing Day floods, December 2015, caused a lot of devastation across Leeds, including here at Leeds Industrial Museum at Armley Mills, and we decided at the museum to put on an exhibition to mark the first anniversary of the floods.
298 residential properties flooded internally, 371 commercial properties flooded internally, 3,368 properties impacted, and all in all 14 electoral wards affected by the floods. From such a huge catastrophe though comes togetherness. It's that community action that is a recurring theme here.
We also got some stories that were quite uplifting about how people were able to come together, people who didn't previously know their neighbours before the flood.
So from a dire consequence, you got a good situation happen.
And that's it for this week's show, but you can catch up on previous episodes by going to the BBC website. That's bbc.co.uk/digitalnation, or maybe log on to your own local TV channel. So until next time, goodbye.